In other news, global markets are reeling from Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs, triggering a chain reaction across nations. European share prices have plunged and Asian stocks have hit their worst drops in decades. Amongst the first to respond are Vietnam and Taiwan, both offering to eliminate tariffs on U.S. goods as part of trade talks. Vietnam, hit with 46% tariffs, is willing to cut duties to zero in exchange for a deal. Taiwan, facing a 32% tariff, has also agreed to remove barriers. India and Indonesia, though impacted, are choosing diplomacy. Both nations are focused on negotiating trade deals rather than retaliating. Meanwhile, China is taking a hard stance against the tariffs. The Chinese government has accused the U.S. of economic bullying and unilateralism, stating that the U.S. is prioritizing its own interests over international rules. This comes as China retaliates with its own 34% tariffs on U.S. goods, deepening the trade conflict. Let's listen into what Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian had to say.
对等为名，行霸权之实，牺牲各国的正当利益，服务一己之私，将美国优先凌驾于国际规则之上，是典型的单边主义、保护主义和经济霸凌行径。
In Europe, officials have warned of escalating tensions. The EU is considering all options, with some ministers suggesting a response targeting US tech services. German ministers have stressed that EU's strong position if they respond united, while French ministers suggest aggressive countermeasures. Let's listen in to what some of the EU trade ministers had to say.
Going to discuss is how to position Europe in what I would describe as a paradigm shift of the global trading system. So I'm very glad that I would have the opportunity to inform and debrief my colleagues, the ministers, on the ongoing contacts with my American partners.
So firstly, I think if you were to get into that space, it would be an extraordinary escalation at a time when we must be working for de-escalation. It is in many ways the nuclear option if you start talking about the use of the anti-coercion instruments and the likes. So what we need to do here is step by step, in a measured way, consider how best to respond. And I'm very clear from...
Et donc là-dessus, je pense qu'il nous faut n'exclure aucune option sur les biens, sur les services, quelle que soit la façon de l'aborder, et ouvrir la boîte à outils européenne qui est très complète et qui peut être extrêmement agressive également en retour. Je pense évidemment à l'instrument anti.
Trifft die Argumentation, die Trump zur Grundlage seiner Entscheidung liegt, einfach nicht zu. Wir sollten also gar nicht darauf einsteigen, auf diese Argumentation. Und damit verbindet sich, dass die Rede von reziproken Zöllen, also Gegenmaßnahmen gegenüber Vorteilen, die Europa oder die Welt gegenüber den USA hat, einfach falsch ist. Es sind Verhinderungsmaßnahmen, es sind Abschottungsmaßnahmen, die er ergriffen hat mit schwerem Schaden auf die Weltwirtschaft. Schon jetzt brechen die Börsen ein und der Schaden kann noch größer werden.
Meanwhile, South Asian economic ministers are set to hold further talks on tariffs being hit hard by the U.S. Malaysia's trade minister has now, of course, come out and emphasized the importance of staying calm in the face of economic pressure. Speaking at a press conference, he said two wrongs don't make a right as the region looks for a unified response to the U.S. trade moves. Let's quickly listen in to what Malaysia had to say.
So yes, so far as from my understanding, there's no retaliatory tariff being imposed by countries of our members of ASEAN. And as I said, we have a 10th of April, we have a discussion. We'll discuss with them, with my colleagues on the next step forward. I think two wrongs don't make a right. And it's important that we remain calm because anything that will result in trade war is not for the benefit of the global economy.
U.S. President Donald Trump has responded calling for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates, defending his controversial tariffs in a post on Truth Social. Trump claimed oil, food and interest prices are down, adding that there is no inflation. Joining me on the broadcast is Mr. Levon Hampartzumian, CEO and Chairman of the Management Board of UniCredit. Joining me from of course, Bulgaria. Mr. Levon, I want to understand from you, European equity markets are experiencing their worst session since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020, as US President Donald Trump has reiterated his commitment to eliminating US trade deficits, particularly with China, while denying any intention to fuel market turmoil. How exactly are European leaders and European markets reacting at this point in time?
Well, it will be very difficult at this point of time to generalize about the response because we hear different things from relatively hard response to more soft and negotiating and all that. It's quite clear that we will go through the phases of response. As you know, this typical sequence of anger, denial, bargaining, and acceptance. But most probably there will be efforts to have some at least short-term bargaining to clean the warehouses, if you want. But in a longer term, obviously there will be heavier restructuring of world and European production and supply chains and all these things, because quite clear that these things which are happening in US are not for we are not going to disappear overnight. And even if the previous setup, which was built for almost 70 years, is now destroyed.
At the same time, how exactly are European leaders giving any sort of reassurance to the people? Because in such situations, what usually happens is that investors start losing confidence in the markets.
$500 million people, which of course it's fragmented and all that, but of course internally it can absorb part of the shock. Then obviously there will be set of additional negotiations with other trading partners, starting with Canada, going through Asia, India, probably another different agreement with China, and so on and so forth, in order to compensate the absence or difficulties to sell to American market.
And Mr. Levon, what exactly do you think is going to happen in the next year to come? Will the markets at some point in time stabilize, or are you hoping that leaders and countries will open up talks with the United States of America, which may give some respite to the economies?
Well, of course the markets are going to stabilize at some point. Where they're going to stabilize, at which level, that's a completely different story, and I wouldn't dare to guess at this point of time. But definitely there will be a recession and inflationary pressure on all the economies involved because we are destroying, in this point of time, we're destroying the commercial setup of the world. It might be not the ideal from any point of view, but it was working. And now it is having a significant difficulties to work in the old way. And obviously finding a new way is not going to happen overnight.
Absolutely. Mr. Levon, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX World. We leave it there.
You're welcome.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived in